So I have another message, but it's in regards to a movie that the Lord led me to watch, but he also had reminded me after I made my last word about the Lord's Court in 2024, coming from the book of Isaiah, chapter 3-4. He said that I got sidetracked and I didn't explain the very last verse in the scripture. So he's taken me back to that and said that he wants me to just take 2 minutes and explain the last verse of the scripture. Because on the word I had put out previous to this one, I was reading that scripture and explaining it as I went. So I had read the last part of the scripture, but I didn't explain that last paragraph. So he's asking me to do that quickly on one side. So it was, in that day, 7 women will take hold of one man and say, we will eat our own food and provide our own clothes. Only let us be called by your name. Take away our disgrace. So you may need to tune into my last word about the Lord's Court in the title to understand what I'm talking about right now. But for those of you that do listen to the words in sequence, and you already listened to it, you'll know what I'm saying. So when it's saying, let us be called by your name, take away your disgrace. So what that means is getting married, like take on your last name. Because in biblical times, it was considered a disgrace to not be married, right? Especially if you were a woman, like I was just describing earlier in the scripture about being haughty and worried about your appearance and materialistic and things like that, right? So the Lord is continuing off that message in this last part here. He's referencing that if for the women that are like that are going to be going under judgment, that there's so many of them here in 2023 that there will be 7 of them to 1 man. So many women in this day and age have become like that woman of Zion that the scripture speaks about, that there can be the ratio of 7 to 1 man. Like that's how rampant that would be, right? That would technically be like, 70% of the women fall into this category, technically, right? If you want to kind of just go there with it. So 7 women will take hold of 1 man and say, we will eat our own food and provide our own clothes. That's currently happening. Women right now, like I was saying, there's women trying to rule their husbands and rule their household, right? When that's a man's position. And a lot of women, we've seen modern women where they're the breadwinner now and the man is the stay-at-home parent, right? We've seen those tables turn. And sometimes the woman makes more money than the man. Sometimes the woman provides for the man, so therefore she does buy her own food and her own clothes. Things that many years ago was the man's position to do, was to pay for his food and clothes and for the food and clothes of his wife and for his children, right? But due to these modern day women of Zion, like the scripture explains, and again it's Isaiah chapter 3-4, they provide their own food and their own clothes, and they're wanting to provide for themselves, and they're in a position financially to take care of themselves and their household, but yet they want to be married because of the disgrace that they're going to face. See, when the world is saying it's rah-rah, it's okay that you're the head of the household woman, and that you're spending all your hard-earned money on yourself, and you're working 24/7, and you're focused on you, and you're having your husband, you order takeout for your food, you have your husband take care of the children and play the mother-father role instead of him being out earning the money. Or maybe he does work, but you're more of the powerhouse, you have the company, he doesn't, you're more of the breadwinner, whatever it may be. Maybe you have more education, things like that. When the world is accepting of that, and it's this like boss babe mentality or whatnot, then that's not considered a disgrace, right? That's considered praiseworthy. it's not, but I'm just saying that's how the world's so backwards that that's what they consider to be of status and ranking and things like that, right? But obviously back even 100 years ago, it wasn't like that. And even back in biblical times, it wasn't like that. So God is saying that, like I mentioned in the last word, he's wanting to reposition things, reposition situations and people, right? And that when this judgment comes, which, like I say, the judgment will start here in 2024, that when this judgment is affecting the women, that they're going to fall from grace, right? So they've been held up by grace, and they're going to fall from it in the new year here. Well, starting in the new year, and then what we consider to be, of high status, of high authority, high ranking, accepting of things. These mindsets are going to shift and change. And therefore, this mentality and behavior won't be as accepted as it currently is. And when it's no longer accepted, it's then going to be considered disgraceful, right? Because like I say, think about it. If a woman staying home taking care of her kids, like God intended, is to be considered disgraceful, right? That she's not earning her own money, that she has to rely on her husband, things like that. And that a woman that is out after work with drinks with friends, she's always on the go, appointments, meetings, earning, like, could easily live comfortably off, say, 30 grand a year, but that won't suffice. She has to earn 60 or 70,000, things like that. She's not maintaining the place and the role that the Lord intended her to have, right? And because the world is backwards due to so much sin, we praise women that are in that role while trying to disgrace the women that are the opposite of that, which those women are actually doing what God intended them to do, right? Now, I'm not trying to say that women can't work or take care of their household or bring in some money. I'm not saying that. Look at the story of Ruth and Boaz. Ruth was in the fields, working the fields, and that's one of the things that caught Boaz's attention, right? She wasn't at home knitting or sewing. She was working in the fields. So again, I'm not trying to say that women don't have a place out in a position, but I think the listener understands what I am trying to say about how there's again that fine line, right? So when these women that are considered in a power position, when these tables turn and they fall from the grace that they're currently on, the position that they had would be considered a disgraceful position, or at the very least, themselves, how they conducted themselves, will be considered that. Because again, the ones that are disgraced will be exalted, and the ones that are exalted will be disgraced, right? There will be that shift. So therefore, if the specific women are in the position I described in the last video, and the majority of them are, hence why the Bible references 7-1, 7 women to 1 man. It doesn't say 1 woman will go to 1 man. It says 7 women to 1 man. So because it'll be the position that they were in will be considered disgraceful, and the tables will have turned, they will want to then be back in grace, and the way to be back in grace will be going back to the old ways, right? The old-fashioned ways, and that's where a man marries you, right? And so it's a juxtaposition, because in this verse, the woman is saying, I will even pay for my own clothes and my own food, just marry me so that I cannot be disgraced. So it's kind of a, 1 foot on one side, 1 foot on the other, because on one hand you want to be married so you're not disgraced, because women who are married are the ones that aren't disgraced. Those that are single and acting haughty and flirty and sexual and stuff, that will be considered a disgrace, right? So to save yourself from that disgrace, you'll want to be married, but at the same time you're almost so desperate that you're saying, or put in a desperate position, I should say, that you're saying, I'll even pay for my own food and clothes, because you had this career behind you, you had this education behind you, so you're in this position to where you could pay for your own food and clothes. So on one hand, you know, you can take care of yourself, you're the independent woman, right? But on the other hand, because it'll be disgraced, you're wanting to be married to be graced again and removed from disgrace, right? So yeah, whereas like the old-fashioned way, if you are a married woman in the olden days, you didn't necessarily pay for your food and clothes. That's what your husband did, right? So I think the Lord will still want women to be able to be in a position where they can maintain themselves in their household. Just like I said, the Proverbs 31 woman, it talks about how she wakes up early and she goes to work and she's never at lazy, right? She's never at ease, like she's always doing something, but it doesn't say that she's, you know, like working long days, you know, away from home. You know, she's always shopping. She's always, you know, in the beauty salon or at the mall or trying to stay up with the latest trends and fashions. You know, while her husband may be out of the house, she's flirting with some men. She's trying to get some attention. She's coveting what her next door neighbor has. You know, it doesn't say that. It says that she takes care of her husband and her children and herself and her household, right? So if anything, she's like an equal partner to her husband, right? So anyways, that's the reference in that final paragraph, is that in that day 7 women will take hold of one man and say, we will eat our own food and provide our own clothes. Only let us be called by your name, take away our disgrace. So even in reading it, it sounds desperate, right? That the women, because I think what it's also trying to say is that the amount of men that will be looking for a woman like that will be slim. Like right now, the world has shifted so much that say 70% of men are looking for you know, boss babe, high maintenance type woman like that, right? Say. But 50 years ago, it would have been only maybe 10 or 20%, but nowadays it's like 70% are. Well, when the Lord starts to do his shifting here in 2024, by the time these things unfold, it's going to go back to where only 10 to 20% of men are looking for a woman like that, hence the one man, right? But because so many women have unclean hearts and hands and minds, they fall into this woman of Zion category nowadays, right? And so they're going to be wanting to go through their days acting like the powerhouse and the high maintenance breadwinner, you know, money maker, I run everything, you know, into themselves type of woman that they're used to being. But because the Lord is going to shift the mindset of the men, and the men are going to be wanting more of like a righteous, natural, down-to-earth woman, like the men did, you know, say 30, 40, 50 years ago, right? And I made a word about this too last week, talking about how God's going to change how men and women date, and this falls into kind of that same line. So he's going to change the mindsets of men to where what men are finding attractive in this day and age is going to shift back to the old days, and the majority are going to change gears and want like what's considered not desirable now. They're going to want that. And then when this happens, because the majority of women don't operate in that same category, there's going to be a bigger divide, and they're going to fall from grace, and then they'll be feeling so desperate because the things that they used before, like their money won't work, their career and their education and their manipulation and their sensuality and their femininity and their beauty, like these tried and true tricks that have maybe got them promotions or got them husbands or got them followings, things like that, these aren't going to be desired anymore. So then they're going to be at a loss because they won't know what to do. Okay, what do I do now? This is how I've been living my life for 20, 30 years, right? So they will be so desperate to not be in the position that they're in, and to have a man that it'll be 7 women just to 1 man, because of, like I said, the just the percentages changing, right? Where there's less men that are available to women like that, but yet more women that are acting like that, right? That they will go to that 1 man. Well, basically the scripture sounds desperate. It sounds like begging and desperate, like, please just marry me. I'll even pay for my own stuff, like suggesting, that if they could just marry you, that then you could look like the other women, and you'll even offer them incentive to do so, kind of a thing, right? So I don't know, but anyways, that's what the Lord was trying to say to me. It's kind of hard to explain. I was on the context of it in the last message, but now that I've lost that train of thought. So that's basically what he's trying to say. I hope that makes sense. I just personally found it interesting how it was 7 women to 1 man, right? Because, 5-10 years ago, if you found 7 women like I just described, there'd be 10 men jumping on that, right? But with the scripture of what it's saying, going with the gist of it, it's not meaning that. It's meaning that when the Lord does this judgment and this shifting, the women are going to be the ones left at the loss, and the men are going to shift gears and want something different than what that is. They're going to go back to the kind of women they desired back in the 80s, right? Just as an example. So yeah, so we had like 80s type men and 80s type women. And when the Lord does what he does starting next year, we're going to have 2023 women trying to navigate a world with 1980 mindset men. And so there's going to be a big change there, and we're going to notice that. So anyways, enough about that. So now we're going to go into the second thing. So this was really weird and prophetic, like super prophetic. So about like a month or 2 ago, the Lord was leading me to watch a movie on YouTube, and it was free, right? So there was no excuse to not watch it, because it's not like I had to pay for it or anything like that. But it popped up called The Ultimate Gift, and it's not a movie that I've ever heard of, ever known of, nothing like that. But he was like trying to lead me to watch it, called The Ultimate Gift, and I thought, well, I don't know if that's really my style, because I don't really watch like movies like in that category very often. So I dismissed it and went on with things and watched something else. So anyway, then there's a prophetic channel that I follow, and she was on TikTok, and I don't use TikTok, so I'm not familiar with it, but I do know enough to know that you can like somehow post up like movie scenes and stuff on TikTok on your video. So she was using a little 1-minute clip from a movie that I've never seen before. Didn't recognize the actor and the actress, didn't recognize any of the script, the setting, none of it. So it was not a movie I had seen. And it was going with a message that she was putting out and using this specific scene from this random movie, right? And I even noted it, and I was like, oh, I wonder what movie that is. I've never seen it before, because I've seen most, not most, but quite a few movies. So I don't know. Anyways, life goes on. So then today, it came up again randomly, and I even had reset the app and everything, and my search history and and my watch history, and it came up again. And this time the Lord was like, watch this movie. I was like, okay. So I obeyed, right? And I watched the movie, and it was a really, really, really good movie. It's called The Ultimate Gift, and it's free on YouTube. And it has Abigail Breslin in it as the little girl. I don't really know the main actor and actress names, but I recognize the little girl. So anyway, so I watched the movie, and it's like I wouldn't say it's a Christian movie, but it's like a feel-good movie, you know, kind of like a Christmas movie like that, but it wasn't about Christmas. But I understood halfway through why the Lord had me watching. I was like, okay, it makes sense now. I understand this. And I encourage you to watch it for yourself. I'm not going to give like the whole plot of the movie away or anything like that. But it's basically about this guy who comes from rich, starts out with like he's pampered, he's spoiled, and he's rich, right? And he's high maintenance and self-absorbed and all this other stuff. And a relative of his dies, and he wants his chunk of inheritance. And this relative says, well, yeah, there might be some inheritance for you on a video, but you have to follow these steps that I give you in order to receive it bit by bit by bit kind of thing, because there's more to life. I'm old, you know, I've passed on. There's more to life than just money. Even though I'm rich, there's gifts that life gives you that are more important than, you know, just getting an inheritance and off you go, right? So this relative makes the main character jump through hoops, step after step after step, trying to earn this his chunk of the pie, and along the way he changes. And so you know, if you walk with the Lord and you watch the movie, you'll probably take something from it too. But because I found it to be like a very prophetic movie, and I understood what the Lord was trying to say, and I was like, okay, I get why you're trying to get me to watch this now. And then it was so funny because then he randomly leads me to go back to that prophetic channel that I had watched like a week or two ago, and I had noticed on the thumbnail the one clip, and I now, because I watched the movie, I recognized it. The very movie that the prophetic channel had used the week or two ago in the video clip from TikTok that I watched was a scene from The Ultimate Gift. I was like, Lord, oh my gosh, you know, like this is what he does, right? This is just one of many ways. And so it's hard to put it in context and explain what it's like when the Lord gives you signs and wonders and points things out to you. But for those who know, you know what I mean, right? And so I know he had a message for me there, and he even wanted me to share it. So that's what I'm doing. So, you know, and because the message in the movie is very profound. And I mean, the Lord doesn't normally lead me to movies and songs and such like that for messages. But I mean, if he does, I obey and I will do as he pleases, right? But in this case, yeah, so I understood after the fact why he was wanting me to watch the movie. It made sense. I'm glad that I watched the movie. I'll probably actually watch it again. And it's one I recommend, and he wanted me to make a word on it to put it out so others could watch it too. Maybe you've already seen it, because I think it came out in like 2006 or 2016. I'm not sure, one of the two. It's a few years old now. So maybe you've already watched it, but he had been trying to get me to watch it a while back ago, and I didn't. And then funny enough, there was that prophetic clip from that channel that I happened to watch, and then had no clue, watched the movie, went back, saw it, and was like, you have been trying to get me to watch this movie for a while in many ways. Like, so it all clicked afterwards, right? But he wanted to get the message out to me and to you that, you know, life isn't just about what we can get and money and, you know, houses and materialistic things. It's about the gifts that we are given along the way of our life. So if we're blessed and graced to be on this planet for say 50, 60, 70, 80 years, that's a lot of days that the Lord has given you, right? And not every single one of those days are you going to make a big chunk of money. Are you going to buy a new home? Are you going to get married? You know, these things that we try to aspire for, but throughout those days, you know, you're even there's gifts in problems, in struggles, you know, in hardships. There's gifts there, and we don't see those gifts because we're too focused on, you know, what comes afterwards, the next thing that we can look forward to, right? But there's gifts there, and even your family and your friends and stuff, these are gifts, right, that the Lord's given you. And so this movie just really hones in on that fact that life isn't just about yourself and money and getting ahead and what you can do and everything. It's about the days that you're blessed with and given. And it's kind of like a Scrooge story, where we know the Christmas Carol was Scrooge, right? It's kind of like that in a way, where it's got that same storyline to it, where it's, trying to show that there's more to life than just money, basically, right? And so the Lord has been trying to show me that for the message. And he got me to at the very end, when the credits were rolling, it listed all the gifts, one after the other, and the Lord said, write these down. So I said, okay. So I wrote them down, and there's 12 gifts in the movie. And I found this so weird, because he wanted me to watch it a while back, but I didn't, and he let it go. He let it slide. But here, now that we are just before Christmas, right, he's was extra wanting me to watch it. And so I went ahead, and now after the fact I understand, because there was 12 gifts in the movie that they went over and talked about, right? And so we know the 12 Days of Christmas song, where there was a gift for every day, right? And we're in the Christmas month. And so and then even just the fact that it's about gifts, like presents and gifts. So it's just so fitting. And so I just wanted to share that, how the Lord works. It's just very mysterious. Like I said, how he's leading me to it, and how I have no clue what it is or what it's about. I watch it, and here's this. It's not even about Christmas, but it can correlate with a Christmas reference, with the 12 gifts and the 12 Days of Christmas Carol. And the fact that gifts are presence, and present is in the present moment, right? So even living in the present moment, as in present, is a gift, right? So I'm just going to read them quick. These are the 12 gifts that are scenes in the movie, okay? So there's the gift of work, the gift of money, the gift of friends, the gift of learning, the gift of problems, the gift of family, the gift of laughter, the gift of dreams, the gift of giving, the gift of gratitude, the gift of a day, and the gift of love. And the Lord's encouraging you to write those down as well. And so he had me write them down, not only so I could reference to them, but also so I could, speak about them in this word. But now that I've wrote them down, I can look back and I reflected on them, and I see that, yeah, he's right. Every single one of these things are day-to-day things. Like laughter is a day-to-day thing. Being grateful, the gift of a day, just a simple day in our life, right? The gift of money is one of the things, but it's not about, you'd have to watch the movie to understand, but it's not about the gift of money in a materialistic way. It's meaning how money itself is a gift. If you're poor and on the street and you have nothing, you can't even buy yourself a sandwich, to get someone to give you $100, that's a gift. Now, if you're rich and someone gives you $100, you might just go, what is that, pocket change? But if you're absolutely destitute, broke, and someone gives you $100, that's a gift, right? You're able to feed yourself for the next 3-4 days off that, right? And so it's talking about that in the movie, that, basically when he had everything, all he wanted was more money, but he wouldn't have seen the gift in having money. And then when at one part it was stripped from him and he was left with nothing, and he received some money, it was it was everything at that moment in time, right? So when you have everything and you're offered money, it doesn't hold weight. But if you have nothing and you're offered money, it really makes a difference. So therefore, in that context, it's a gift, right? So again, you'd have to watch the movie to understand how these relate. And if you have watched the movie, then you know what I'm talking about. But the other thing the Lord pointed out to me is that, as we know with Christmas coming up, it's giving and receiving. So you're giving time to your family and you're receiving time from your family. You're giving gifts to your family and you're receiving gifts from your family. You're giving, maybe cards, or giving some sort of meals, some food, and receiving. You might go, have family over to your house one day for dinner, and then maybe 2 days later go to their house for dinner, right? It's giving and receiving, right? So with every single one of these gifts, these are gifts that you receive and give, right? And so the Lord was showing me that too. Like, for example, the gift of learning. Like, so someone will teach you something and you learn. The fact that you learn something from someone is a gift. And then when you're able to turn around and teach somebody else, and then they learn from you, now they've received your gift. So at one point you received the gift of learning, and then you were able to turn around and give that gift of learning back to someone else, right? So hence the cycle of the giving and the receiving. Same with laughter. If you give someone a laugh, they're able to find humor and they get a laugh, and then in turn, a week later, someone tells you a joke or something funny and you get to laugh. You've given the gift of laughter to somebody, and then in turn, a week later, you receive the gift of laughter from somebody, right? So it was just interesting how with to take it a step further, that with all these gifts, they're gifts that can be given to you, but also that you can give to others. And they're things that we take for granted, like a little bit of money to be able to feed yourself, like problems, even the gift of problems. We don't view problems as a gift, right? But if we didn't have any problems, we wouldn't be able to see the silver lining in things, and we wouldn't be able to learn the nuggets of knowledge and wisdom in things, right? We would just stay stagnant and bored, because it would be the same thing over and over and over again, right? So even having problems can be viewed as a gift, right? And same thing, sometimes you're given a problem in life, and sometimes you give problems to others in life, right? So that's something that's given and received as well. And again, we don't think that a problem is a gift, but when you look at it from a higher perspective, you see that it is, right? And so again, these are things that we take for granted on a day-to-day basis. And so, I encourage you to write that list down yourself and to reflect on them, and definitely to watch the movie. If you've watched it before, maybe rewatch it. And if you haven't watched it, definitely check it out. And, because like I said, the Lord was trying to lead me to it, and he doesn't always necessarily do that. And then he even wanted me to make this little word on it too. And I know that, like, if we were saying the month of May or June, maybe this wouldn't even be happening. But because it's the December month and we're close to Christmas, that was the extra little, piece to it, was that the fact that Christmas is around the corner and it's about these gifts, right? And then he also gave me like the 12 Days of Christmas Carol as well. And that Christmas Carol is about a gift. So just, that's basically the message. But just know that, you're being given gifts on a day-to-day basis, even if you don't recognize them as such, it is. And you're also giving these same gifts to others as well, unbeknownst to you, but you are. And that life is worth more and has more in store and has more value than just, these milestones that we consistently try to achieve. There's more to it than just that, right? Than just that superficial. And so even this kind of ties to the first part I mentioned in the beginning about the last paragraph on the Isaiah verse, is that superficiality is not going to cut it moving forward, right? And that's one of the ways that the world has gotten off track. One of many is it's became very, very superficial. It's all about how somebody looks, or what they have, or what they can give you, or what you have, or what you can get, or it's not about the seeing things for what they really are from a higher perspective, seeing the gifts that the Lord gives us on a day-to-day basis, not just at Christmas, every day of every week of every month of every year, right? So and this movie was a blessing because it blessed me, being able to see that and get the message from the Lord that he was trying to convey to me. And now here I am able to bless you with it as well. So I definitely recommend you check out the movie The Ultimate Gift, free on YouTube. And yeah, I hope this blessed somebody, and I hope it made sense. And take care. God bless.